Reporters keep leaving our papers, but nobody comes in their place. We plead with Sir Ray to replace them. It falls on deaf ears every case.
I mean, I've come here basically to be with members of the chapel who are incredibly bravely standing up and saying enough is enough. We can't carry on as we are. Our communities that we serve deserve better. Journalists out on strike today and this week and next week, they're not just doing it for themselves. It's not simply about improving their own terms and conditions. They're doing it because they're passionate about quality journalism, and they know and they believe and they see day to day the difference that a quality press can have.
Say one reporter, demands shrunken back as we go. So Ray shakes his fist in defiance. So off on a strike we must go. Bring back, oh bring back reporters, Sir Ray, Sir Ray. Bring back, oh bring back reporters, Sir Ray.
To mourn the untimely deaths of our dear friends, the Enfield Advertiser and Gazette, the Barney Press, the Harringay Advertiser, and many more of the collective family known as North London and Herts newspapers. Let me tell you about these wonderful papers. They were once the apple of our eyes, so beloved for providing quality news for generations of readers, so fearless in exposing corruption and investigating wrongdoing, such popular members of our little community. These once healthy, vibrant siblings have suffered the grisly end of death by 1,000 cutbacks. So they now lie lifeless before you. But my brothers and sisters, but call me one crazy man of the cloth, but I believe in hope. Woo! As we approach this time of Easter, I believe in resurrection. Just as our Saviour raised Lazarus from the cold, cold earth, I believe the kiss of life can be given to these old, withered bones, and they be raised up from the coffin to which they be consigned. So instead of ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and all the depressing stuff, let us strike up the band. Let us dance and be merry, for together we can raise North London and Herts newspapers from the dead.
We shall not be moved. 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 We shall not be.
But for the sake of healthy local democracy, we need a healthy local press. And you can only have a healthy local press if it's properly restored so that it can hold us to account.
I just wanted to say an appreciation from all us readers, because it is our only way of expressing our concerns is through our local newspapers.
I mean, newspapers are the window to the local community. If these newspapers go, what voice will the local community have? Because the National's not interested in covering the issues in Enfield and the surrounding areas.
Staged in North London today by journalists who say that local newspapers are dying. The stunt in Enfield was organised by reporters who are currently out on strike in protest at staff shortages at the Tyndall Newspapers Group. 3 reporters have been left, 3 to fill 9 newspapers. The industry has been struggling to survive the increasing availability of news on the internet, which has led to a fall in the sales of printed papers. So how important is your local printed newspaper to the community where you live? If it dies, would you miss it?
There's still a place for really good local newspapers, quality local news out there. I was speaking to a couple, their daughter tragically died in a car accident a few years ago, and the paper started this road safety campaign. And they were saying to me today, they were saying, look, if you hadn't done that, people would not be made aware. It's important to be the heart of the community and set the agenda rather than being on the periphery of the community.
Hi comrades. Hi. We're off to Streatham today. It's our sister paper in South London. We believe they're writing the paper from there. We're going to do a protest. We're not allowed to picket, apparently, because that's illegal. Saving local papers. It's all about saving local papers in the heart of the community. South London Press, North London and Herts newspapers campaign today to save local newspapers.
Once more and to the breach, dear friends, once more, or close the wall up with our English dead. In peace, there's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in our ears, then imitate the action of the tiger.
Over the past 10 years or so, is that the quality of all local media has suffered from a lack of investment. The owners, Great Tyndall being one of them, are just refusing to recognise that quality journalism makes a quality paper, which means that more people will read it and more people will talk about it. As the quality suffers because of lack of investment and lack of staffing, readership goes down, the advertising goes down, and we're in a vicious circle at the moment where everything is going wrong. And I think there's a big myth that the internet has destroyed local media. That's not true. Back when newspaper companies started making massive cuts, the internet was no threat at all. And what's happened effectively is people are using new media now to fill in the gaps that aren't being covered by local media.
Privileged to address you all today, and thanks for having me. It's quite inspiring to be here, and we found this all week through our strike action. It really has been inspiring, getting support from all over the country, and it makes you realise that going on strike's not a bad thing at all. It can be very positive.
I'm chief photographer at North London and Herts newspapers, and we decided to go on strike because we have, when I started working with the paper, it was 7 years ago, and we had 4 newspapers and 8 reporters putting the papers out. Now we've got 3 reporters and 9 newspapers.
It's a disgusting workload, working long hours, working weekends, and we just said enough now, enough's enough. We can't take this anymore. Our papers used to be original, they used to be full of life, they had real fire in their belly, and now they're reduced to very bland, boring, derivative exercises. There's lots of press releases. We haven't got time to do a proper job on it.
We decided after 12 months of negotiating, ACAS were involved, that we would go out on strike and try and prove a point. So we went out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday last week. We're out the 3 days again this week. And hopefully something will come of it.
People understand that newspapers are really, really important to the local community, and people only realise how important they are when they're not there any longer. And we've got to make sure that doesn't happen in Enfield and the other parts of London where you're producing newspapers.
The last day of a fortnight's protest against cuts to local newspapers is taking place this morning in Farnham. 9 journalists from the Enfield Advertiser, which is owned by Surrey's Tyndall newspaper group, will be holding a street party outside their headquarters. Intrigued, Alex Stefanovic has more.
In 2009, the Guardian Media Group closed 8 titles across Surrey and Hampshire, resulting in the loss of 95 jobs. More recently this year, the Woking News and Mail also closed with the loss of 20 staff. The dispute by the journalists, dubbed the Enfield 9, is about the paper's staff who are leaving but not being replaced. The organisers of today's event says it's a peaceful protest, but feel that newspaper bosses are valuing greedy profit margins over journalism. However, the company say they have not made any journalists redundant in the downturn.
We're totally up against it. I think the glory days of journalism seem to have gone. There's been a gradual erosion of the quality of the papers. So reporters these days, I know a few years ago you could go out, you can investigate, you can try and make a difference. These days they're stuck behind their computers, working long hours, late into the night, working weekends. It certainly ain't what it used to be, and we're making a stand against that, for trying to make a stand for quality journalism.
Happening right now is that papers are suffering rather badly, and I personally addressed the entire staff at Enfield at 2:30 on the 11th of April, only 3 weeks ago, and I told them all of the losses, and I asked them all to join in with us must find that solution.
Well, I sincerely wish you all the very best in hope in finding that solution, because I am someone who believes very strongly in local journalism, whether it's broadcast journalism or local newspapers, and it would be a terrible thing if the local newspapers in this part of the world and in the wider Tyndall newspaper group empire were to disappear.